Okay guys, for these video notes, they're called in terms of pi video notes. Go ahead and have this notes page in front of you. If you're using OneNote, make sure you have that open. If you're in class, make sure you're turned to this video notes page. And let's get started. If you have highlighters, grab 2 colors and you will need a pencil. And let's get started. So here's number 1. We have a cylinder and its dimensions are shown below, and then we have a cylindrical shape. And then the question is, what is the volume of the cylinder in cubic centimeters? But for today, we're going to focus on leaving our answers in terms of pi. So instead of finding an approximate volume, just a numerical answer, we're actually going to leave it in terms of pi. And that's what you guys are going to be learning today, okay? So let's go ahead and to find the volume of this cylinder in terms of pi, we're going to follow the exact same steps as we have been following with a little bit of a tweak, okay? So the first, all of the steps are actually the same, okay? So the first step, remember, is to set up your T-chart, which is there by writing, well, we're finding volume of cylinder. Set up your T-chart with the cylinder, name of the shape written on the right side, and then we have shape of our base on the left side where we have a circle, because for a cylinder the shape of the base is a circle, okay? And then let's write down our volume formula, which you guys should get from your formula chart. So if you have not pulled up your formula chart yet, go ahead and pull it up and look for the volume of a cylinder formula. It is area of the base, capital B, times the height of the cylinder, which is little h, okay? So capital BH is the formula for volume of a cylinder. All right, and then the next thing we do is we shade our base. So I shaded my bases blue. So I had a top base and then the bottom one I had to outline it a little bit, and there it is. And then now it's very clear to me where the height of that cylinder is. Remember, what does the height do to the 2 bases? Yeah, it connects them. So we have the height, which I highlighted in green, and I plugged it in. Once I plug it in, remember guys, I need to mark it out. So let's mark that out, and then let's go ahead and go to the left side where it's all about that shape of the base. So here we go. So I drew that circular base, the shape of the base, which is a circle, and I labeled the dimension that was given to me. And notice it's only half of the circle, and that's what we need, right? Half of the circle is what we call the radius. So radius equals 12.1. But let's say you were not given the radius, you were given the diameter. It would have been 24.2, which is basically times 2 of the radius. But then if you were given 24.2, you would have to remember to divide by 2 to get the radius, right? Okay, but we don't need the diameter, so we're going to mark it out, okay? And then let's go ahead and find our area of our circular base, which is capital B, which is the area of the circle. And remember the formula. You have the formula chart in front of you. Go ahead and write down the formula for area of a circle, which is pi, or pi times radius squared, okay? And we know what our radius is, so we just plug it in. And don't forget to square it, okay, just like how I have done it. Inside of parentheses, outside of parentheses, it doesn't really matter, okay? And then I'm just going to drop down that pi, okay? Now, normally, you guys would have taken the pi and the 12.1 squared and plugged those numbers in straight to the calculator to get a numerical answer, right? But this time, we're not going to touch pi. We're going to leave it as is, and we're just going to calculate what 12.1 squared gives you, okay? So go ahead and do that. Yeah, it should give you 146.4, but notice how I just dropped down that pi, and that area of our circular base is in terms of pi. And when we plug that area, which is in terms of pi, into the capital B in our formula, just like that, we now have one more step to do, where instead of plugging the pi into the calculator, leave the pi, do not plug it in, but make sure you multiply the 146.4 and the 3.8, and you should get 556.3, but then drop down the pi because we haven't done anything to it yet. Okay, so you could leave your answer like this, as pi times 556.3, but usually it will be written as 556.3 and the pi at the end. Okay, and remember the units for volume is cubic units, and in this case cubic centimeters. Okay, all right, so the goal is to just keep pi, don't do anything to it, don't plug it in the calculator, and that will get you your answer in terms of pi. Okay, so here we go. All right, now let's go to number 2, and you guys try it on your own. Go ahead and cube it first, and then I'm going to walk you guys through step by step again. Okay. All right, here it is. So a can, remember guys, it's just a cylinder, and they have given you a cylindrical shape right there, so that's how you can tell. And then you're finding the volume of that can, which is a cylinder. So setting up your T-chart with the formula, and then I shaded the bases, and then the height was 10 because it was connecting the two blue bases, the circles, and then plugged in the height, marked it out. Okay, diameter, it was 8 because it was the whole length of the circle, the whole circle, but then we only want half, or we only need half, which is the radius, and I've shown you how I got the radius. Well, I took the diameter and divided by 2, because I know I have the whole thing, but I need to find only half of it, so you just divide by 2. Okay, and then I don't need the diameter because it's not in our formula, because I know that the area of my circular base formula, area of a circle formula, is pi r squared. Okay, and I went ahead and plugged in my radius and squared it, and then dropped down the pi. I didn't do anything to the pi, and I knew that 4 squared was 16, so I just wrote down 16 for that number, and then dropped down pi as is. And then now we're just going to plug in the 16 pi into the formula. So there we go. And then the final answer in terms of pi, the volume of the cylindrical can in terms of pi is 160 pi. Okay, now let's say you wanted to get the answer in terms of just numbers, so approximate volume. What would it be? Well, it would be about 502.7 inches cubed, or cubic inches. Okay, all right guys, now let me show you quickly how to deal with the surface area of a cylinder. So I'm just going to use number 2 as an example. Okay, so I've already set it up. I just want y'all to look through first, and then you have space at the bottom of the notes page. There's a little bit of space. You can draw the T-chart there and jot down these notes. Okay, so in this case we're finding the surface area of that can right there, and that is still a cylinder. We're going to use the same dimensions. Okay, all right, so remember the formula is, what is the formula for surface area of a cylinder? Total. Yep, 2 pi RH, 2 pi times radius times height, plus 2 pi times radius squared. And then I went ahead and did all of the steps to get my height. I shaded the bases first, and then I highlighted it. And then I knew I needed to find the radius because that's what's in the formula, the R. So radius was 4. And then we do not have to calculate area of the base here because we don't have capital B in our formula, right? This was one of the mistakes you guys were making, so I wanted to be very clear here. So we have the radius, now we just plug it in. All right, so everything, I plugged in the 4 for the radius, the first one, and then the second radius is squared, so I squared it and then dropped down the 2 pi on both of those, okay? Now, similar to the volume calculations, instead of plugging in the 2 pi's instead of plugging in the 2 pi and pi into the calculator, you're just going to plug in the numbers. So the first half is going to give you 80 pi because 4 times 10 is 40, and then times 2 is 80, so pi, drop down pi, don't do anything to it, because we want our answer in terms of pi, right? And then the next part, well, we have 4 squared, which is 16, and then times the 2 gives you 32, but don't do anything to the pi because we want it in terms of pi, so that gives you plus 32 pi, and then when we add those together, it just gives you 112 pi, and since this is surface area, it's inches squared or squared inches, okay? And if you wanted the the approximate surface area of the cylinder, numerical answer, it would be around 351.9 squared inches, okay? All right, so this was super quick, but you can leave your answers for surface area in terms of pi as well, okay? All right, guys, now go ahead and click next to go on to the next assignment.